Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
I show up happy and giggly and fun for them as opposed to the overstimulated, overwhelmed person that I feel like I really am. I'm a mom. I lose my cool.
Like there's this image of kind of like a hippie, lets their kids do whatever they want, like type image that they've created. And it's just like, no, not at all.
Somebody asked me what I do in the middle of a parent-teacher conference. And it's like, oh, we talk about this right now, are we?
I have to be the yin and the yang for everything in this family because I don't get any help. So yes, I smoke, and I promise you I don't care who knows that I smoke.
Changes to law and shifts in social attitudes typically don't move in tandem. That's certainly been true of legal marijuana use in the St. Louis area. While recreational adult use of cannabis has been legal in Illinois since 2020 and in Missouri since December 2022, the way people feel and talk about folks who partake, especially parents, comes with a considerable amount of stigma and often isolation. We'll take your calls about parenting and cannabis use later in the show. But here to start this conversation about navigating that reality are two local women who formed a group to provide support and community expressly for mothers. We welcome Kimberlee Kesterson, co-founder of STL Cannamoms. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. And Jessica Carroll is also co-founder of STL Cannamoms and inventory manager for Feel State. Welcome to you as well.
Hi, thanks so much for having us.
And thanks to both of you for joining us today. So, Kimberlee, let's start with you. When and how did STL Cannamoms come about?
We've been in business now, I would say, about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. And how did that start? How did it get its beginnings?
Well, funny story. I started... It was right after I had my son. I was about 5 weeks postpartum. And right after I had my twins, a couple years before that, I went to being a stay-at-home mom. And so I really wanted to get back to doing something more than just being a mom. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I'm just going to get a little fun job. And why not? Because I get discounts. Hello. Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting this job at Feel State Dispensary, and the hiring manager tells me that somebody named Jessica Carroll will be working there as well. And I was like, that's so funny because the very first time we met was at a job 10 years ago. And from there, our friendship grew. Time kind of passed us away. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of funny how we had a full circle and came back to Feel State together. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, just a high ideal really, let's create this Facebook group. And from there, we started hosting events, and the moms loved it. And this Facebook group community just grew
and
so
it's very active. As of this morning, your Facebook group has more than 3,000 members, mm-hmm. and it is continuing to grow. Jessica, why do you think the STL Cannamoms community has had this kind of traction?
That's a really good question. I think there's many things that come into play for that, but the most is just because as a mom, it's really, really hard to find your place to fit in. We don't have much free time, and the little free time that we do have, we've got to use it wisely. So I know it's easy to just hop on Facebook real quick and type in something that kind of relates to what you're looking for, and go from there. So I think we made that easier for moms, and just to know that no matter who's in this group, it's already been vetted to know that you don't have to ask that awkward question or bring up the fact that you smoke cannabis. That's one of the hardest questions or topics to go over with a new mom friend or a new parent of another child, because you don't know how they're going to react. And it could be one of those situations where the moment they find out that you use cannabis, you're no longer allowed to have your kid around their kid. So we took that question out of it and just created a community. And from there, that's where we are.
So what are the main topics that get discussed in your online community? I mean, is it all about consuming cannabis, or what are some of the other things that you talk about?
Oh, no, not at all. The talk about cannabis is a very, I would say, small part of our group. We give mom advice. There are moms that have linked up and have created their own kind of group to where they're going to karaoke night together, or they're going to skate night together, or they're meeting up at a restaurant and having dinner. And so just to see all these little friendships and these dynamics kind of blossom outside of the group, and it all stemmed from them meeting each other at one of our events, is such a beautiful thing to see. And then there's a lot of advice that's given. We do Cannamom Get Some Help. So Cannamom Get Some Resources, Cannamom Make a Friend. And these are just little different forms and group chats that we have within the group, to where if a mom may need some resources on testing for her kid, or she's trying to get out of a domestic violence situation, or if somebody, she's going through a hard time and doesn't have it in her to cook a meal. And so we've created meal trains to make sure that mom can get a break, or if they need clothes because they want to try and get a professional job, but they just don't have the money to go out there and buy a nice business suit. And we do trades, and we have a group where people give away free things like diapers and wipes, and it just amazes me how all of these women have come together to help one another. And it truly is such a safe space. And we work really hard on keeping it exclusive and just a mom-only group, just because we want them to know, like, we see you. And we as moms have gone through the same struggles. And so we do understand. And I think it's really important for people to not just see us as, oh, we're just a bunch of moms that sit around and smoke weed. Like, we're real people, and we have very kind hearts, and we want to make a difference in each other's lives and show up for each other, supporting each other. So we want to break that stigma, you know, of us just being like lazy parents that just hang out all day and do nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, insofar as vetting people, because this is a private Facebook group, how is it that you go about doing that? And is that part of the security that people feel joining this group?
Yeah, I definitely think that goes into play. When we first started the group, it was just me and Kimberlee. So we did set it up where you had to answer questions in order to be accepted into the group. It's one of those where you don't automatically get accepted. And some of those questions are as simple as, like, do you identify as a mother? Are you in the St. Louis area? Do you consume or like the idea or are interested in consuming cannabis? And they're very simple questions, but it's a very, very niche group. So if you don't answer the questions, you're going to sit forever. So if you are sitting in that queue and you haven't answered your questions, just answer them and you'll get in. Okay. As long as you answer them right. But yes, I think that it definitely makes it for a more secure feeling. Now we have an amazing team of a few women that are really, really good at what they do. It's honestly, it's a little
they
concerning to me. Yeah, I'm like, wow, you guys really went in there on that. Okay. So yeah, and then we try really hard to make sure even at our events, like it's only females for the most part. I think this last one was one of the first times where we actually had males, and that's because we hired security. And then we had our dab and dads, our partners there, serving up the dab bars kind of situation. So other than that,
They were working for us,
yeah.
so it's fine.
So yeah, I think that's kind of what goes into it to help in making it private and secure. And then we do also have the public business page, though, where everybody can see outside looking in what we've got going on, the community aspect and outreach in that.
So we've talked about stigma, and the stigma that is associated specifically with being a parent who uses cannabis. How would you describe that, Kimberlee? What is that?
I don't know. I just feel like when people don't understand something or it's not the same way that they choose to do life, it's super easy for them to cast judgment without even knowing a person. And it's so funny because at these events, there are some moms that show up and I would have never guessed that they consumed cannabis. So it's just like, I feel like people have in their head, like there's this image of kind of like a hippie, lets their kids do whatever they want, like type image that they've created. And it's just like, no, not at all. Like we have so many moms that come from so many different jobs. I mean, we have realtors, we have people that are doing like community outreach stuff. We have business owners, chiropractors, doulas, like the list goes on. If we need somebody to help with credit, there's a mom in there that can do that, that will help you.
Help with anything.
If you need housing, there's a mom in there for the group that will do that. And so just like seeing all these different walks of lives, I mean, we have members as old as in their 60s, and then we have members young, 21. So it's crazy that people have created this weird image of what a stoner or a cannamom would look like,
And Jessica, for you, I mean, are you surprised by who has joined, or has this actually sort of demonstrated what you've known all along about parents who use cannabis and like what they're like?
I was surprised to a certain extent, but also coming from being in the industry, the cannabis industry, I've been in the Missouri industry basically since it came into play. So I got to see where it was only medical patients, and so I got to see everybody from all walks of life, from helping a 74-year-old Vietnam veteran getting his med card to, an 18-year-old who has the worst anxiety and can't even make it through his day kind of situation, or helping a patient who has severe autism where they can't function and can't even verbally communicate, where their parent as a caregiver is able to get them through their day. So it didn't surprise me all that much, but it did kind of to see like, holy crap, there are a whole bunch of moms out here that do use cannabis to be a better version of themselves.
I had a feeling.
So, the way that stigma has existed, even though there have been changes in law, we noted that Missouri first made legal cannabis use in December of 2022. And we recognized last year, 420, the first legal 420. And for the most part, that is something that people observe when they're celebrating marijuana. In prep for the show last year, though, producer Maya Norfleet spoke with Jacob Kurzanski about the way his parents talk about cannabis.
My mother despised cannabis use growing up, and it took legalization for her to even realize that there was anything to it. She valued it way worse than alcohol, and it's just interesting to see how times have changed and how she's changed with them too. And I feel like a lot of people are dropping their stubbornness towards it and being just at least accepting of it.
So there seems to be kind of a generational difference in attitudes around cannabis. So as self-proclaimed cannamoms, how did you talk with your own parents or elders about your cannabis use? And, do you think that being here in the Midwest, as opposed to places like, California or Colorado, made any kind of a difference, Kimberlee?
So my mom, she had a very interesting view on cannabis, to say the least. Back then, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I had gotten pregnant with my oldest, and, I used cannabis during my pregnancy. I was very stressed out and super emotional, and I was going through depression through my pregnancy, and cannabis really helped me get through that. And because I was using during pregnancy, my mom had in her head that she may potentially have to take custody of my daughter because she was going to get taken away from me because of using cannabis. And I had her on my 19th birthday, so I'm a young mom, and I just remember being in the hospital and a social worker coming in there and being like that they were going to pay a house visit and just basically make sure that my daughter had everything she needed. And so the next day they showed up to my house, and the lady, it wasn't a bad experience. I mean, she told me that it was okay if I consumed cannabis, just don't do it around my child and don't take care of my child under the influence. And it looks like your child has everything that they need and she's in a safe environment. And that was that. And after that happened, my mom, I think something switched where she's like, oh, okay, so this isn't as bad as I was thinking that it was. Yeah. And that was 11 years ago. So I feel like we've definitely made a lot of growth since then. Yeah. And now she's making T-shirts for my for my business, and we did a pop-up out by her house. I mean, my mom's never tried cannabis. Very straight edge when it comes to the cannabis world, and uneducated. And so we did a pop-up, and everybody's smoking it out, right? And here comes my little old mom, and she's there walking around buying earrings and stuff, showing up and being super supportive. And yeah, I love that I can share my excitement about my business and the impact and all the stuff that we're doing in the community with my mom, and she is all about it. Yeah. So.
And by the way, we should mention here that the CDC says more research is needed about the effects of cannabis use during pregnancy, but consistent with guidance from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the federal agency advises against its use. Just a disclaimer there.
Yes.
We're going to take a very quick break, but when we come back, we will continue with this conversation. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some of the generational differences. And Kimberlee, you shared the anecdote about your mother and how she's sort of come around to cannabis use for parents and for mothers in particular. But I wanted to make sure that I talked with you, Jessica, about the same thing. Have you had, kind of hard conversations with your parents or with elders? I mean, how has that played out?
I have. I wouldn't say hard per se. I guess I don't have a word for it. And if they're listening, they'll probably be upset at me for talking about it. But I have used cannabis since I was a teenager. I have horrible, horrible anxiety. And that's how I managed it, was through cannabis use. And my family's been aware of it, and they, did not condone it. I'm the black sheep. I'm probably not going to do anything with my life. They got to worry about me, kind of thing. And so, they always knew, but we'd never had the conversation about it. My mom would get grilled because she's not taking care of it kind of situation. But then when I got in the industry, I was very open with it. I'm not going to hide who I am anymore. You like me or you don't, take it or leave it. And, I showed up one day and I probably sparked a joint in front of them because, at this point, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And that's when the conversation was brought up like, hey, well, we have a friend that makes edible cookies and we tried them. And I immediately was like, whoa, don't do that. Like, I don't even take edibles made by friends because you don't know how strong they are. And that's where they were like, yeah, it was, not a good time. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, what are we trying to do here? Are we just trying to have fun? Is there a reason why we thought about that? Like, what's going on? And it was just they just need to sleep. They want good sleep, more than 4 hours of tossing and turning, I was like, all right, well, let's talk about edibles.
Right.
You can get these legally with a med card. And you don't have to do all the pills that they're trying to give you to sleep. You've been through so many different kinds of pills to sleep and it's not working. So let's try this little itty bitty edible that's probably 2 milligrams, a little bite of it. Don't even take the whole thing. And see how you go. And from there, now we're open about it. They ask questions about cannabis. They tell their friends about what I do and the business I'm, creating and the stigma that we're breaking through it. So it's a complete 180, but it wasn't always so nice.
Right. So there's been that evolution then. Well, our producer, Roche Hemmings, caught up with another parent. This is BJ Jordan from Creve Coeur, who's a father and also works in the cannabis industry as a marketer. BJ shared how talking about cannabis as a father with folks who may or may not use cannabis can be a sticky situation.
Somebody asked me what I do in the middle of a parent-teacher conference. And it's like, oh, we talk about this right now, are we? So it's really trying to figure out who each person is before you talk a lot of times, to be honest with you, when it comes to parenthood. Last thing I ever want to do is put my kid in a bad situation or him have judgments passed on him because of what I do.
So do you worry at all, Kimberlee, about how others might perceive your family or your children if they know about your cannabis use or even your profession in the field?
I think at one point in time I did. I am finally getting to a point of being proud. We really found a niche here and a way to connect with people, to make an impact in people's lives, to have people come together. As a young mom, I made a lot of mistakes. Me and my oldest daughter, we grew up together, and I did a lot of self-growth and changing to get to the point to where I'm at now. And I do get the affirmations from people around me, like, wow, you're doing so good. And like, who would have thought that this would have been you 5-10 years ago? And just like, look at everything that you've created and how good you're doing. And so the affirmations definitely help. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. I'd have to say at this moment in time. I'm channeling that inner boss energy, and I'm super excited for the future, and I want to continue, reaching out to people in the community and making a village.
Yeah. Jessica, for your part, do you guard yourself against those who might be unaccepting? And you were talking about your family, and you're very open about what you were doing. You talked about lighting up a joint in front of them. That is your family. When it comes to, for example, in BJ's case, your children's educators or people who do not know you very well, is there anything that you do to sort of insulate at least until you figured out whether these are people who are going to hear you as a person before making a judgment about you?
Not really. Like I said, I'm a very much, you're going to like me or you're going to hate me. And I don't really care what people think. If you want to judge me for me partaking in a plant to help me get through my day and be a better version of myself, then so be it. I've been fortunate enough where I haven't had an incident like that at school just yet. But I will say I have gone to every single parent-teacher conference, every single recital, every single opportunity to volunteer in with a shirt that says Fuel State Dispensary, or my lanyard on that says Fuel State Dispensary, or my fanny pack that I created that has cannabis flowers on it discreetly. And any conversation, like, I'm not going to hide who I am in that aspect, just because, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's my identity. And cannabis is not my identity, but I am somebody that people look up to advocate and to help break the stigma. So
we can't hide.
Yeah,
that.
I don't hide it. People ask what I do. My first answer as well is, since you want to, that's the question that everyone asks. I'm an inventory manager at Fuel State. I'm a bartender at BJ's Bar and Restaurant. I'm a bartender at City Museum. I clean houses. Like, what term? So, I mean, it instantly, people know. And if they want to judge me, like I said, they can. But then they'll miss out on the perfect opportunity to have somebody like me in their life.
I'd like to invite you to the conversation. If you have a question or comment about using cannabis as a parent, give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. You can also send us a tweet at STL On Air or email us at talk@stlpr.org. Now, something that we heard about has to do with something you all have mentioned already, and some of these are the stereotypes that people have about those who use cannabis. Producer Roche Hemmings spoke with Kay Rayford from St. Louis, who's also a member of the STL Cannamoms online community. And Kay said that despite the stigma around cannabis, she's become more comfortable talking about how cannabis allows her to show up as a mother.
It doesn't give me a lag. It doesn't give me a dummy effect. It gives me an awareness. I'm a mom of 9 children. My oldest is 13 years old. My youngest is 8 months. Do you know I have to be eyes and ears for 10 people? And that 10 is including myself. I have to be the yin and the yang for everything in this family because I don't get any help. So, yes, I smoke, and I promise you I don't care who knows that I smoke. My kids have never been taken away from me. We've never been evicted. I've never lost a job. I've never nothing from smoking.
How has cannabis, Jessica, impacted your parenting, particularly around managing very day-to-day duties of being a mom? That's something that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you maybe provide a very specific example?
I get very, very easily overwhelmed, overstimulated, and I'm super aware of that fact. And I'm trying to break generational curses. So for me, I get through a couple of big tasks in the morning and reward myself, for lack of a better term, with, a little joint or a little dab here real quick, and then on to my next thing. And I show up happy and giggly and fun for them, as opposed to the overstimulated, overwhelmed person that I feel like I really am. I'm a mom. I lose my cool. Everybody knows that. As a parent, you lose your cool sometimes. And being able to be aware of, okay, no, I'm triggered right now. I'm overstimulated. I need to take a step back so I can come back to being the best version of myself for them, because they don't need to have this version of me. It's smoking is also like meditation in an aspect. And my partner was one that kind of pointed this out to me. He's like, think about it. You're taking deep breaths. You're calming yourself. So it's like it's your little meditation for a second there to reset yourself and then go on to the next. We've made some pretty awesome pictures after a good little session real quick, and it's like, I don't use around them, in front of them.
Yeah. And as we wrap up the conversation, parents means that you have kids, And we've talked about how to talk with children about cannabis use on the show before, and that was with Prevent Ed's executive director, Nicole Dawsey. That organization has age-specific toolkits for parents to talk with their children about cannabis. And they'll be launching something called In the Weeds. It's a campaign next month on how to start having conversations about cannabis. Kimberlee, between working in the industry and being a canna mom, how do you talk with your daughter and then your younger child about cannabis use, or even what cannabis is to begin with?
So I have 4 kids altogether, at all different ages. My oldest, she's very aware that I consume cannabis. She knows what it is. She just got done with DARE. Her graduation's this week. So she's very aware. She knows that I host events and I do a lot in the community, and she's proud of me. She tells me she's never wants to, try smoking cannabis, and cool. If she does, we'll have a topic, or we'll discuss that later on. But yeah, she knows if there is a pack of edibles, she knows the symbolism on there. Like, hey, you shouldn't have this because it has cannabis in it. We consume in our garage, and so all of the kids know when we step out there not to come out because they're not allowed to be around the smoke.
Right.
We keep our stuff up high because my twins, they're feral. They get into everything. So just like knowing that they have that crazy temperament, and that they are a little sneaky, and they do things like get into sugar and creep around the house. We know to keep that stuff locked up and put away. So yeah, just being open.
This episode was produced by Maya Norfleet.
Production assistance from Roche Hemmings.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.